let's go back to the internet. Let's get the YouTube link now. Oop. Okay. Alrighty then. It's funny. Oh, freaking Twitch, man. God. Twitch is always the busted one now. YouTube is several seconds behind. Anyway. So let's do this. Can we go to the thing? That should have done that. Yes, we are. We are on. I decided against coffee, although I might change my mind. Oh, God. I swear. Modals, man. Everything's busted. I don't know. Do I want coffee or more water? I think I want coffee. So I'm not going to pin my lav on yet. Error 2000. What is 2000? TT VAW. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I need to allow some yet another JavaScript domain in order for the Twitch video to load. Possibrew. I should have just stuck with the coffee idea. Because now I have to get up again. Anyway. I can hear it boiling. Oh my god, there it is. That's totally what it was. Some stupid, yet another freaking... Also, I gotta say that like Twitch is the only streaming thing that Twitch is the only streaming thing that doesn't count yourself among the viewers. And you think that, oh no, I guess YouTube does too. But it didn't, I don't remember. No, wait, Twitch does count yourself. Sorry, YouTube doesn't count yourself. Anyway, okay. Going to pour the coffee. Okay. I'm bringing back the water until the coffee is. All right. Clip my laugh back on here. Ooh, don't touch it. So today's job is to look at Sense Atlas again, which I haven't looked at in a while because it has been too slow to run. And it's been too slow to run because it's been crapped up with basically like backlinks. So the object, the resource that represents me, has like thousands of backlinks because I am the creator of like thousands of objects in this domain. And so it's like, oh, you've like, what is that? Why is that? Why is anything? Okay. Poor, good, poor, good, poor. Anyway. So yeah, I'm going to look at this now and just sort of like reflect on what the heck. Oh, did I forget the damn plunger? I got to go get the plunger for the coffee. I suppose I should mute the mic when I do that every time, but I've had trouble with the thing. I like set up a bunch of macros and like key commands and stuff like that for it, but it doesn't work as it's like not reliable, and then I can't tell. So then I will do stuff like, oh, wonderful, I'm in focus. The other thing too is also this camera just loves to go out of focus and then like will not go back into focus. So anyway, so this is where we left things. So I created this in May of last year. This is the implement internal caching. Why did I implement internal caching? Well, we were relying on browser cache for XSLT being intolerably slow. That's a whole other freaking issue that has to be dealt with. We will need to be able to handle a much higher request rate if we expose Intertwingler to the open internet. Okay, Intertwingler's been exposed to the open internet for like a year now through Sense Atlas. And unless I forget, like, it seems to be fine. I mean, the thing is it's just not very, like, the machine that it's running on, I think it has like 8 gigs of RAM. It's enough to run it. It's not getting like bazillions of hits or anything like that. I mean, it's not the most efficient thing in the world, that's for sure. Like, it's written in Ruby, it pre-forks and then it threads, and so, you know, It's fine for now. I'm sure that's like I'm sure it's wasting RAM on stuff, um, but like I would rather almost rewrite it in a better language. Um, the only question is which language is better. Than try to like memory profile it and get that down. Because I mean, yeah. Anyway, but like basically each process takes up like 500 megs of RAM, and they climb up to like 700, which is a lot of RAM. I'm talking resident set too. I'm not talking just like whatever the bullshit RAM figures are, which I don't actually understand how those are calculated. But I'm talking about the stuff that you need to buy more RAM for. That's the question that I want to know the answer to. But it's fine for now. Anyway. So yeah, implement internal caching. This was a response to a bunch of stuff. Let's see, it's like a lot better now. This is all old. Another thing that I need to do actually with Sense Atlas is make some kind of mechanism for clearing out the old stuff. A lot of this is you could kind of construe it as like me teaching myself how to make web applications that are like purely based on like RDF, and so the mechanism is very simple. Like instead of doing SQL queries, instead of like using an ORM or whatever to generate SQL and to have that like come out, over the wire protocol that SQL, whatever freaking SQL database you're using uses. And, serializing, or not serializing it, parsing that into some kind of object, and then, like, using that structure to populate like a template or whatever that turns into your HTML. What this does is it just takes the graph and just disgorges it to it just takes it and sticks it straight into HTML or JSON LD, depending on the way you're asking for it. And then you just recursively just follow links, basically. Like the template thing follows links, and that's how that works. It's a shitload simpler of a design. It's a lot simpler, which is interesting to work with for sure. But I mean, that's not what I'm doing right now. What I'm doing is I'm trying to determine, like, now that caching has been implemented, I just want to double check that I'm yeah. Okay, yes, I just wanted to make sure that the volume was on. All right. Yeah, so we're going to just sort of go through these and just sort of do like a retrospective, for lack of a better term, on what the process, like, so I wrote this out on May 8th of last year. I started poking at it on November 26th. I mean, you gotta understand that this is a I don't want to call it a side project, but it's definitely like I do this in the interstices between stuff I actually get paid to do, because nobody wants to pay me for this right now, and they should, but that is a negotiation that needs to be made. I mean, I think, oh, hi, Tynan. I think getting caching done was sort of the important aspect, the thing that really, really, really needed to happen, like before anything, because it's kind of like it was in this kind of a dead zone between, you know, or uncanny valley or whatever you want to say about it, like between like couldn't work on it because like the major bottleneck, like the bottleneck of Sense Atlas is like I can't really work on the UI until I have like enough real data that like patterns emerge, basically, like, and they emerge, but they emerge very slowly, right? Like even like a bunch of these predicates are kind of like I don't know, like you got to try them out and see if they make sense, and the only way you can do that is with real data, because it doesn't, like, you just, yeah, I mean, there later on it might be plausible that you could generate stuff out of you know, like I was gonna say LLM, but at the moment it's just like it needs to be real because the structure needs to be real and the semantics need to like are real, and so you need to like do it and be like, does that fit, like, and then you like go back to the ontology and be like, does this, like, should this be a sub property of that and stuff like that. So like that process is incredibly tedious and just, yeah, extremely not it's just a pain in the ass. Anyway, so yeah, so I implemented internal caching, but I wanted to go through like, so this was sort of like what this is recording or did record is sort of like what my thinking process. So like, okay, implement internal caching. This is a task. You can see in the corner that it's a task. And I was like, okay, like, this is a response to a bunch of stuff. Okay, even ordinary page gets when the graph state doesn't change. It can be slow. Blah blah blah. It's freaking slow. And that's like the obvious need for caching. Now, I was originally concerned with the cache entity, like the entity bodies. So like the way that Intertwingler works is I can just, well, here, I'll just go like this and say, I will say, whatever. Let's see if this is in here. Example is this. Oh, fine. Flow diagram. Boop. Oh, screw you then. There we go. So yeah, you know, you make a request as a user, request comes in, it gets transformed, the request gets transformed, it gets resolved at some point. I can't remember how, it doesn't matter. The request itself gets transformed. That goes to the dispatcher. The dispatcher goes and tries to figure out what content handler to serve the content with. And then that comes back through the dispatcher and then goes through a set of queues, or a queue of queues, a chain of queues of transforms. And the transforms will transform the response body. And so this was the stuff that needed caching. Because you do this, like if you, you take the response body here, you turn it into a sub request, you push that into the transform, it comes out the other side. Okay, you can cache that. That is a freaking pure function. And so it whatever bytes you put in there, you will get the same bytes in proportion coming out. So you can cache that shit forever until the actual implementation itself changes. Now, some of them aren't pure functions entirely. Like some of them take state from other places, so you can't guarantee that for all of them, but for most of them you can, and then the rest of them have like a last modified, so it's sort of like you change, it's like, oh, the actual thing itself is different now, so now it needs to be updated. But then most of those, like, of the time, like, you don't need to do anything. So yeah, anyway, so this so that is what intertwinger looks like from the side. So now I should actually update this and just be like, there's the cache, there's a cache, there's a cache, blah, 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 blah. There's also, I moved the content addressable store. So there, like, I actually put one on board now, and that was originally, that was going to be like a handler. But I decided that it would make sense to just put one straight on board on inside the application server. So yeah, anyway. So let's go back to this. So I'm just going to traipse through this because, like, what I wanted to do was I wanted to fit back or put back the various. What? No, that's right. Okay. Like, just I wanted to make sure that everything was here. So it was the entity bodies was the first thing that I did. So implement internal, or the caching. So this was the this is work that I did back in that's 2024-02-16. For some reason that doesn't seem right. But, like, you can see that this has been on the books for a while. I'm actually curious as to when. Let me try to see something here. Do push D. I'm just doing this in another window because I don't remember actually here what state this is in. Oh, it's probably fine. We can go that. Did it go back? There we go. Okay. I just couldn't remember, like, I have, like, been streaming before, and, like, there have been, like, a bunch of passwords, a bunch of API keys, whatever. Git log stat. What did I say that was? That was 2026. 2020, okay. For 2024, starting diff for branching. Sorry, what did I do there? 1387? That doesn't seem right. Strokes of buzz. That was quite the Odyssey. I wish my commit messages were like a little bit more descriptive. It's just sort of like, well, that was quite the Odyssey. No idea, man. Although this 1387 is interesting. The thing is, May 7th, 2026, 2024, 25. Let's see, this is, okay, so this, around here must have been when, this is probably when I moved. I'm just, what's weird about it is that there's no, oh, you know what it was? No. This is right. This is, this 1387 lines here, that is when that's what I'm actually looking for. November 21. Yeah. So I'm just going to say I started on November 21. For that to do. What's in that to do? Update the metadata format. That's probably what that was. Because, I made like the V0 and the V1 metadata formats. Because, well, that's right. I was just looking for like a V1, even though I don't think there is one. Like, there's no V1 file. There's just the V1 is in there. I don't think I popped that out until much later. That's weird. Did I not merge? Does. No, I did. Yeah, okay. It's just weird that the, like, find lib dash type f. Like, why do these files not show up? Okay, that makes more sense. Yeah. It's just weird that that doesn't show up. Right? Like, that's not, if I do that, like, they're not in there. Oh no, there's V1. Okay. I was just tripping the hell out. No, that's not too bad. Apparently it takes like an hour and change to fly from Rome to Tunis. Who knew? back to this. So what did I say? The caching generated representations against the subjects. I know I just do that. This is what I want. Maybe you did. Oh no, I did. Okay, that's right. I finished it. Oops. Is that actually even right? Generated representations. No, I mean that is right. But the subtask, I feel like the subtasks need to be higher. Or they need to be in here or something like that. I don't know. Like I went and I upgraded. Come on. Index the cache indices using a dedicated key value store. So this is the one, like I started that in January, didn't touch it for 2 months, and then spent the entire month of April, like almost the end of April to almost the end of May on it. So really, should actually. No, it doesn't. Process model, does that depend? Anyway. So what is missing? Okay. Maybe I will. So this is like, yeah, this is fully done at this point. I want to start thinking about No, you know what? There was more stuff. So, I'm gonna now. My freaking brain. The coffee hits, and my brain is like, "Oh no, wait." You can probably see how slow this thing goes when it actually gets updated. Okay, so it turns out. So there was a bunch of stuff. Man. Like a new record for unsubscribers from my freaking newsletter. 10 in one shot. Which is weird because I actually thought that was like, it wasn't like bad. It wasn't a bad quality product. I don't know. Using dedicated key value stores. So, what did I actually do? Represent the cache entries. Cache in any bodies. Right, okay, here we go. So it turns out, this is my favorite thing to say. It turns out, see, there's a lot of them. That why come everything's so slow? It turns out that my brain is still not on. rack message bodies. Or just thinking of the rack spec. Can be any number, or potentially wildly irregular. Yeah, you can see that the rack message bodies. Okay, so this was implementing a body, like implement something that will normalize is what I did. Response. Implement a wrapper class that will normalize rack bodies into something IO-like, so that it can be read by store, digest, entry. Just call it write a wrapper class. I need to do something that I just need to do so much on this freaking UI. Like I need to make it so that it auto saves. And I need to make it so that it There's like all sorts of shit. I mean, I could put it in here. That's what this is for. Did I do that? You can't tell. So where was that? I think that was January, May 19th. Okay, 147. That's probably it. Yeah. This read wrapper thing, so I moved that. I'm going to call that May 28th, May 19th, 1845. So this is subclass. It's fine. But I could do that. Yeah, I should really just make that so that it doesn't have to reload everything. It's so lazy though. Okay. Yeah. Why am I offline? Intended for certain audiences. Connecting. You are live. Why? 6 seconds. Clock drift detected. Sync your system clock. The frickin' frick. Where is the clock skew? Is it on the Mac or is it on the Linux? Like, it's frickin' blowing up at me here. Weird. Also, like 6 seconds off. Who cares, man? Why can't I just complete that? Okay, whatever. Fascinating. All right, okay, where was I here? So this is done. That was done a while ago. But it sort of seemed like this problem. So what it was is this sort of like this just this issue just made more sense. Or hang on a second, it was like it seems like this problem of rack messages. consumable. By, actually it's just an issue, it's not a rack message bodies. Consumable by store digest seems like a store digest problem, not an intertwinger problem. Move. I think I called it intertwinger representation. I think it was body wrap. Okay. I really want to like animate this. Although the thing is like the amount of effort that it would take to like this is the thing is that I think this graph is fun, but like I'm told that people in general hate it. Like just in general, not mine per se, but just like people hate looking at it and they're like, we hate force directed graphs. I'm like, it's not force directed, it's a Sugiyama. And they're like, we don't care. Also the math on this particular one is a bit goofed. It's not quite right. It's kind of like one of those things where it's like I could sit down and I could just noodle on it for months. I would love for that. I would love for that, but anyway, where the hell are we here? Store digest read wrapper. Where did that happen? Where did that happen? Representation. So that came out on June 27th. By the look of it. Yeah. Came out on June 27th. So that was May 27th. What? Oh, okay. I see. My girlfriend keeps talking. May 27th. Was that what I said? proxy object to wrap content with a back reference. What the hell is that talking about? Oh, yeah. That was a cockamamie scheme that went away. Why is that poor? Why does it say I'm offline? The other ones are still on. Definitely, the computers are angry at me. What did I say? I said 6:49, 35, 27. It's actually weird that it doesn't break on. So that was not, yeah, move into it anyway. But that was not the whole story. The whole story was the transforms. Just trying to figure out where the hell. So I was like, it turns out, I love this, it turns out. It turns out that what would I say? It's like, so I would say it's annoying to have to test. It's annoying to have to test for. I'm skipping something. Because there was another part. I want to capture this because this is sort of important, like forensically. So I add proxy object to wrap content with a back reference. Right. So this was May 6th. You know what? Actually, no, this is right. The problem, so the issue is it's annoying to have to test, it would be useful for, to be able to drop store digest entries into rack messages. I'm just going to say it would be useful to simply replace. Yeah, so this suggests it would be useful to simply replace rack message bodies with the entry. That consumes them. This is why this would have caught this earlier if I had done this. Simple random message bodies. So has response, create a wrapper. Hey. Create a Did I rename it at this point or not? Proxy object. I clearly did not. I think that was the proxy wrap. Call it store digest object for now. Create a wrapper for store digest object. I'll call it entry. Create a wrapper, even though it doesn't exist yet. It does now. No, I'll just call it the entry objects. Cosplay as IO objects. 2. I should actually like do at some point, like I should scope out like what would I actually need so that the server, like the server round trip, like I could do it just fully client side. Like what would I actually need to on the server side? So the problem here is we have 2 wrappers. And they're like slightly different. So this is actually one of them just wraps the input and the other one wraps the I don't like how it turns around like that. That would be one of the things. The thing is, this is a linear Sugiyama algorithm that has just been turned onto a polar coordinates. Like that's it. I mean, that and the hyperbolic space, so that the stuff gets bigger the farther it goes away from the origin. Why is it that I drink a freaking pot of coffee and I'm like, I'm tired? kind of feel like these should be two things. So that was done very early on. Then I was like, it actually turns out, like, why bother with the extra step? Why bother with, no, it's annoying to, I don't know, it's annoying to have to check. No, because the thing that actually goes in there, it's like, why would you? Yeah. So sort of now we have two wrappers, two different IO wrapper classes for two slightly different purposes. So that's one issue. I am so sure that this could be a better, like, obviously the damn thing could be a better freaking UI. So the response is to just, why not fold the IO functions, fold the IO methods. Yeah, so let's fold the IO cosplay methods into the store. So is that what I actually called it? Oops. Yeah. Object to entry, May 27th. Right, so. What did I say? I said this. Into store digest entry. Just fold the IO cosplay methods. Okay. Think, when did I start overhauling stuff though? So this was like the end of May. So the issue with that, let's just stick that as a sub. So that should be a sub. This including connection representations. Subtask implement. This turns out that this entails a. I love it. Turns out. It turns out that this entails overhauling. Not completely overhauling. Well. I'll say almost completely. To accommodate fake IO. Methods, implement, lazy scanning. I mean, that's what I did. And this is going to be when did I actually do that? So I'm going to say I started on the 27th. 9 a.m. Hello. Oh, right. So, 13, Jesus. Okay. Well, I think this is compact. Right. I'm gonna call it June 25th, 1704. So that took like a month. But that was not just that. Because during this process, it was discovered. It seems like the LMDB bindings are goofed. So let's look at the LMDB bindings. June 16th. So, seems like the well then, guess we're fixing. Hey, get back over here. Ugh, you bastard. I need to make that stay. I need to what I need to do is I need to go and I write down all of the damn bugs that are in the freaking UI of this thing. I mean, what I should really do is I should start at the top and just be because again, the UI for Sense Atlas is it's got legacy in it from 2013. It was Halloween of 2013 when I made the first prototype of this, and this still has legacy from then. So, it could look like anything. It just happens to look like this. But the issue is that I need a critical mass of instance data to even tell what the UI should even be. So I have to use it for a while as is to sort of harvest enough information to determine what that is. Okay, so this was June 16th, 7:12 a.m. 2026, 06, 16, 7, 12. And then, when did I fix that? Fifth, 2119. What did I say? 21? June 25th. Jesus Christ. 6, 6, 25, 21, 19. See, this is like where I'm like, like this dependency stuff, like that's just hard. Like I haven't worked that stuff out yet, but I'm gonna make it a sub task for now. It's like slowing down again. I mean, it's slowing down because it's doing it right, and then it's like freaking pulling everything down again. So of course it's going to be slow. Anyway, this should be faster. Frick. Substack, man. So I'm not on Substack anymore, and but I find that people who like subscribe to my newsletter via Substack like are sort of Substack pilled, and they get mad if they get email because presumably they're using the Substack app or whatever. I have no idea. And so it's like if you have somebody that you have imported from Substack to not Substack, and then they're like, what's this email thing? And it's like, it's called a newsletter, dumbass. Like, that's what you signed up for. Anyway. And then they get mad and they unsubscribe. Whatever. So we can see this like majestic freaking clusterfuck of shit that I've... So. Well, this isn't even the top thing. What is this? That was like a whole other freaking odyssey of shit. Let's actually like... I want to look at it. These like sawtooth shapes are really interesting because they always represent do a thing. What about this? Do another thing. What about that? And like, yeah, so whenever you see that sawtooth like that, that's the orange followed by the fuchsia, it's always that structure, that's that pattern, always, which is super interesting. What about this? Do it this. What about that? Do that. What about this? Do this. So it's like, you know, where are we here? So this is implement internal caching. This is what I was like initially doing. Like what this tool does is it helps you go down the fucking rabbit hole so you remember why you were doing anything. That's what it's for. And so, I mean, it's for other stuff too, but that is like the one major thing that this thing is supposed to do is like help you remember. Like not only help you remember, also help you justify, like I'm going to do this thing now. This is why. Here is the URL of the thing. You know, so it's like a bug tracker in that sense, right? But I have personally found, I find like bug trackers, you, like it's just free text And so like bugs will have like a bug that like, and it would be interesting to sort of integrate more elements of bugginess into this. We're not quite ready for that yet. Like hell, if somebody was like, I want to run my shop on this thing, all right. You know, I want you to develop this thing so that I can plug my bugs into this. All right, we'll do that. Like to me, like when you look at bugs, like when you look at bug threads, they are like, you know, they're usually particular to the solution. So it's like, do this thing. You know, and so like the issue is not even necessarily an issue. The issue is already a solution. So that's an issue, on a meta issue on its own. So, you know, like there's just like there's a, what I've got, what I would say is that I have I've grown an appreciation for this sort of like taxonomy of objects in this kind of environment where, you know, you can see that not only are the objects different types, which is what enables them to be different colors, but like the relationships between them are different types. Now, if I have a bug in something, or like the bugs are all pink to the extent that they qualify as bugs, and they're not just bugs, they are issues, as in they are a thing in the world that should probably have something done about it, or otherwise it's just like it's a state of affairs that's like this is an issue with your idea. And so you know, so it's like, here's an idea of this, but then it's like, oh, like, and you can even see this construct. It's like, you know, here is the thing. What about this? How are we going to represent the metadata in the cache industries? Well, we're going to put the cache metadata into the RDF store. Well, that was a stupid freaking idea. Do we actually really want a really busy, chatty cache metadata in the RDF store? No, we absolutely do not. What was this one? It's unlikely that anything actually needs the interface to the cache metadata besides, yeah, well, so there's like, these are two arguments against doing that. Create an ontology. So this was like a subtask of that. Can the resource identified by the hash URI? No, it can't. Because it's possible for two different requests to produce the same cache entity. And this was a sort of like line of reasoning that came out quite quickly, actually. So anyway, where are we here? What's this? Finish entering. Oh yeah, addressable transforms. So, you know, addressable transforms is that. This is all shit that I've done. Addressable transforms needs caching. Does it even say that in there? I don't even know. It doesn't matter. We're not looking at that right now. But, you know, so anyway, implementing internal caching. There's not a lot of controversy about this. Otherwise, there would be more pink coming out of it. Yeah. So those are adjacent issues, but they are not the same. Where are we here? So we have index the cache entries using a dedicated key value store. Where are you? This was actually surprisingly straightforward. I mean, it was self-contained, and if the irony, of course, is that I did not have this tool available because it was too freaking slow to use. to do the planning for this, so I had to kind of raw dog it. And resource management, cash enter. Yeah, it's funny that term. I got it listening to Sarah Friend talk about say that at the freaking Summer of Protocols. It just like everybody started saying it. My girlfriend hates it. I think it's, I don't know. I'm indifferent actually. I think it's kind of, it's not something I would normally like. I say it as a completely deliberately terrible, tasteless joke because I make tasteless jokes all the time. But so what the freaking hell was I actually planning on doing here? What is this? Inventory resources. Oh yeah, it's all inventory stuff. Server-side XSLT transfer. That needs to be done. That was... yeah. There is a problem with this, actually, that I need to register before I forget. And this, too, like, this is mixing two issue networks together because something will be, like, the thing that we're looking at is in two of them at once. And I haven't resolved this. And a bunch of other stuff too, like there should be like a threshold, like so it's like, okay, I don't want to see like detail. Like this detail, for example, like this could just be collapsed into like a fat node that's just like, I don't know, like a pie chart or something like that of like the different things in it. Maybe. It's just, yeah. It's easier when it's acyclic. Okay, so the issue is that transform queues, so there needs to be, we need to think about the transform queues. The transform, and the other thing too also is like I would really love, and I think this like, there's really almost no role for an LLM in any of this. Like this is stuff that could have been implemented, you know, on HyperCard or something like that. You know, like back in the day, it could have been implemented on you know, some, yeah, I'm sure HyperCard. It could have been. I mean, it would have been a ridiculous project, and it would have been probably, you know, would blown out your Mac or whatever. There's benefits to having it on the web, like everything is directly addressable on the network, and you can just send the URL to somebody, and it's like, here's the receipt for the thing, which is the point. But anyway, the server side. So what's going to happen is like there are issues of some of the inputs. So like say some of the inputs, e.g. via XSL document or document. Need to be partially transformed, but not go through XSLT filter. I'm really pissed about XSLT getting yanked. I mean, I put it this way. I mean, I'm just pissed about the XSLT situation in general. Like XSLT, in my opinion, got some very important stuff right that like was never replicated in any other templating language ever in anything. Like the closest thing was a thing called ClearSilver, which used processing instructions. But like, and the difference is, because you don't see this, like, it's not in React, it's not in Angular, it's not in Vue, it's not in freaking any of those bullshit JavaScript things, it's not in whatever, any of the server side ones. And that is that all of those, every single one of them operates, and then like React, no, I would still say React. Like it operates by stitching together like chunks of markup. That's how they work. And XSLT does not do that. XSLT transforms document trees, which is not the same thing. It filters them, and it takes a tree, and then it spits out a tree on the other side. So you cannot, for starters, generate output that is a syntax error. Or, I mean, you can if you try really, really hard, but in general, you can. The other thing is that you cannot do anything with XSLT. Like, it can't do anything with anything that you don't give it. Like, and that is pretty significant. Like, it can't go off and fetch information. Like, unlike, JavaScript, where it's like it has full reign of everything. Like, XSLT can't. It can't go off, and like, unless of course it's literally just like dereferencing a URL of some kind. But even then, it can't do much with it on the other side of that. So it's like, in my opinion, it's like just inherently more secure. And so like the drawbacks, of course, like, I mean, the other thing too is also XSLT is up to 4.0 that it was actually just released last year, the spec for that. And the browser support has just been non-existent. Like, it's just basically been a redheaded stepchild. But I mean, so if I was going to say shortcomings, like obviously it only operates over XML. But like, I have been using XSLT for 25 years, 25 years at this point. And, as far as like reliably transforming XHTML into itself, now, I mean, it's freaking great, but, it could just be a patch to the spec to say, here are the semantics for this is how you operate over HTML with XSLT. Bump the version. So what I want to do is I want to bump the version to the client version, I should say, or the whatever. I still want to do it on the client side. I want to patch the spec to say, like, okay, here are the semantics for HTML. This is how you do it for HTML. That's how you deal with it. I want to do a syntax for XSLT, which affords basically just easier to type, because that, I think, is the biggest issue with it. Basically, everything that sucked about XSLT 1.0 was fixed in XSLT 2 in 2007. but the browsers did not update then. So 2007, it's been good. It's been fine. They got it 3.0. I think it included. They changed it so that you can stream content through it as opposed to having to have the complete DOM tree in the input. I think that was the big change. The big change of 2.0 was they fixed the really dumb design decision to have the inputs and the outputs be these separate streams that you couldn't take the output of a template and like stick it back into another template and transform it some more. Like that was dumb. You should have been able to do that. They also added regexes, which they didn't have initially. That was also a huge pain in the ass. Like it's a huge pain in the ass to deal with 1.0. But yeah, physically typing it makes your fingers hurt, makes your wrists hurt, and your arms, elbows, whatever. But yeah, I wouldn't. But I mean, we could imagine a world where the semantics stay the same, and the and the syntax is just how many things out there do we have where you can just like transpile the syntax from one thing to the syntax for another thing. Like lots of stuff does that. So we could just do that for that. It's not a big deal. So that's going to be a project that I'm going to do. That's not on this. I haven't typed it into that, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen because I would prefer. That's how I would prefer to deal with the client side. I haven't tried doing anything in like React with this. It would be kind of an interesting project to be like, okay, like how are you going to do like intertwingler with React? I don't know. What would a React front end look like with intertwingler? No idea. I mean, I would just like they just all work by stitching together markup, and it's just so like still, I don't like it. I think it's dumb. I think it's bad. I think the problem with it, the very specific problem that I have with it is that how would I put it? It's like what I want is I want the thing to be whole, right? And when you have these little fragments everywhere, it's like I can run, I can run XSLT through a parser, and it comes out the other side, and then I will know that like any input that comes out the other side is going to be intact. And so like the thing is always intact, and it can't ever become not intact. And that seems like a good idea. Like that seems like a good thing that you would want. And I mean, I don't know. I haven't used like quote unquote modern templating, but it's wild to me that there's no standard for web templates on the client side, like other than XSLT. That was the only one, and they want to get rid of it. Like they want to, not only do they want to get rid of it, they want to like memory hole it, like from the spec, which I think is a terrible, stupid, like, and it's basically Chrome, right? It is like a particular guy on the Chrome dev team who had the temerity to be like, oh, we don't have the resources for this. You have $3 trillion freaking dollars. You don't have the resources. My ass. Like, come on. Do not be Google and say you don't have the fucking money. That is horseshit. Anyway, I am like extremely jacked on caffeine right now, and I'm gonna plod through this and try to figure out what is that? What is this? Yeah, that's the caching. Yeah, might as well go back to this. One of the things that has been evident, like when you like again, like all Intertwingler does is, well, it does two major things, and then I'm going to cut that in half, and then it's only going to do one thing. So I'm going to talk about the one thing that it does that's going to still do after the other chunk is cut off of it, and that is it just takes an RDF graph database and like barfs it out as web pages, and that's it. And it makes sure that obviously that the links are between them are going together, and if you've got existing documents, it will sort of like thread through the markup and whatnot. But all state mutation operations in Intertwingler are just adding and removing statements. Like they're just like add this statement, remove that statement. That's it. And which is interesting. It's an interesting constraint, right? Like when you think of like how with a conventional web app would you update a thing? What does it mean to update a thing? I mean, for starters, in an SQL database, like you would need log tables if you wanted to know what the thing that you were replacing ever was in the past at any point. So that is a whole manual design, and like what you find when you start working with RDF is just how much manual labor you were doing with SQL. It's like, what do I call this? What do I do that? This constraint, this trigger, this, index, et cetera, et cetera. Now, index is a little bit tough but it would be really interesting actually, like, to do some kind of statistic. Like this is where I think like stuff like AI, and I mean it in like the discriminative sense, would be useful. Is you got the AI watching the database for queries, and it's like, oh, I saw a bunch of queries, so I made a index, that fits this particular query, and I ran the cost function on that, and I just determined, and I'm not talking frickin' Claude, I'm talking just some purpose-made, really lightweight, maybe not even a neural net, I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, and it just sort of like, all it does is it monitors, it goes like, oh, that was expensive, let's do something about that, and it just does that proactively. I mean, stuff does do that. It should probably do it. Like, why is it that, like, I have to manually organize my, database, my Postgres database, right? And it's like, well, because it was designed in the 1970s, the overarching design was designed in the 70s, 1970 rather. So 56 years ago. That's when that's how old that stuff is, and that was like what were we using in 1970? Like, was a PDP even a thing in 1970? I think it was. Yeah. But I mean, it would be like IBM 360, right? Like it would have been some honkin' mainframe thing, and that is what would be running your SQL database. In which case, yeah, you know, you would be doing all that stuff by hand because you'd be doing everything else by hand. You wouldn't even notice that you were doing it by hand. Now we write SQL like, you know, we put SQLite on our phones in every app. You know, like pretty much like anything you do on an app, on a Mac or on an iPhone is core data. Anything you do in Android, I don't know what they call it, but it's also SQLite. Microsoft's, what's it called? Some .NET thingy majig is also SQLite. And, you know, so the core data, yeah, you go and you know, noodle out your ER diagram or whatever. SQLite is fine for a phone. I mean, the thing is, it's just sort of like your, you know, it's your, it's just, it's a shit ton of manual labor. I mean, a lot of that too is also abridged by, you know, the framework in those cases. You know, it's like why are we calling stuff? Like I remember MySQL, which, good grief, I don't understand why anybody still uses that. Couldn't have multi-column keys, and so everything had to have a like a surrogate key in order to have a primary key. And I remember switching to Postgres, and I think they used it first in 2001. And I was like, oh my God, you can have composite keys. And then I used Oracle for a while at work until about 2005. And then I was like, I am never touching MySQL again. And then I went to a job where they had MySQL. Somebody blew up that server too. Huh. They like tweaked, this was 4 terabytes of data in this thing. And they, for some reason, touched the config on the production box. And this was still, you would just have a box. And blew it up. And it took 2 months, I think, to load the data back in, which I think was actually a configuration fail. Because why did it take that? I don't know. I can't remember. I think, there was some ETL. It was the ETL that was that. That's why. But yeah. Surprisingly, that guy didn't get fired for doing that. But he did come into some money, and I don't think he's ever worked again. That's his story, which I don't blame him for. Anyway, what am I doing here? So I have implemented the internal caching. The internal caching is done. Now I need to figure out what the hell am I doing with myself. It's good to see that this thing is faster, even though it's still a little bit chuggy. Chuggy, remember that? That was there for 10 minutes. Does anybody ever say that anymore? I doubt it. Chuggy. I feel like almost like that was a psyop. Like nobody ever was serious that was a thing. They just made it up. It's like, yeah, that's a thing that we say. You know, New York Times or whatever. These addressable transforms, now that is a thing that needs to be done. Doesn't need to be done right away though. I mean, it does. Actually, no, that's not true. It should definitely be done next. That's that. It's definitely the next thing to do on this. I just mean like in life, it doesn't necessarily need to be like I'm going to do other stuff other than this in the very short term. There's like other stuff with my life that I should probably do, because I just took the last 2 entire months to do this. To not do that, do this. And then like go down the cache or just thing and see. Storage. What did I say? Did I say? Oh yeah, no. We did all that. That's right. That's what this is all about. What was this again? Wrapper for stored items and display right. That's this. Just fold the IO cosplay methods into the object. Yeah, so that was that. This is overhaul stored items entry, and we're comment the fake IO methods, implement latest add it, and then that was the, guess we're fixing the Ruby. I'm just gonna change that to the Ruby LMDB bindings, just so we know what we're talking about. Can also put I need, so there's like the things that I know that I need, like I need some kind of, God, what are those things called? Like an async job thingy. Like I need some kind of a thing for doing asynchronous jobs. So that I can pull down like link previews and stuff. I don't want to use the client side for that, because I want to store it on the server side for starters, but B, I want to, I don't want to rely on the client for that, because I don't want to have to trust the client for that. I mean, that's a philosophical position, though. I guess you could say that's like a strategic position. You could trust the client, and the client can put what are workers for which. Oh, Tom? Man, what have you been up to? Yeah, so like on the server side, so like let me see this thing. Actually don't have a picture of that. I do have it. This guy, though. So this is an older representation. This is actually interesting because this is quite old. But this is actually the same, logically the same thing. These are both logically the same thing. So this thing down here, this job queue guy, is like the idea of having it on the server side, and it's just sort of like, so what's kind of interesting is there is prefer, yeah. So there's this header called prefer, and you can tell a resource. So like this is all, I'm trying to make this all be like very resty in very much the sense of Fielding's actual dissertation, not like blog posts or like, secondhand podcasts about like actually read the guy's PhD dissertation and do
what he says. And so this, for instance, you can tell the resource to respond async. So prefer respond async, and then it'll be like, okay. And and so like what you can imagine is you could imagine what's weird is you can't tell it to respond sync, I don't think. Which is like, so you would want the default behavior to be async, and then it's like you can have it insist on being synchronous. Would be the way that I think would make. God damn it! Why does that do that? Whatever. Anyway. But yeah. Why are you slow now? You were just. You know what? It's probably like so freaking memory leaked. Oh, no, there it goes. Let's see how much RAM it is. Top. Yeah. Yeah, like a resource. Like a web resource. So I've been giving this a lot of thought. Actually, like I'm gonna do like a video lecture series. I already have one. I mean, here you can see at the top. I have to do the order processing for that still. Like I made a thing, but it is. Semantic rest. So if you look at the Fielding's dissertation, and he's talking about like pipes with types. So first of all, that's what this is, right? Like Intertwingler does this already, and so this queue, this like transform queue. So like each one of these things is a microservice, like with a URL that you hit it with a. I had it doing post initially, but RFC 10,008 is the HTTP query method, which is basically like post except it's cacheable. And so I have, these are each URLs, and you like what the dispatcher does is it goes bang, 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 bang out to the client. And it'll take the response from the origin or the content handler, it'll wrap it in a sub request, fire it into the queue. What comes out the other side, caches that, repackages it into another request, fires it into the next one, takes the response, caches it now, didn't cache it before. Repackages it, next one, repackage it, and then like these queues have different sort of semantics. Like this addressable queue is, where the hell am I here? That's this, the addressable transforms. And you can see actually even in this diagram, I have like content transforms and presentation transforms. And the presentation transforms kind of like straddle the network between the server side and the client side. That's still very much, it'd be very interesting to know when I made this. 2020. August 4th. It's got to be older than that. I mean, certainly when I uploaded it. Anyway. Yeah, so like a resource, the way that I think of a resource, first of all, an information resource is I would just say that an information resource is an identifiable like thing or place where you go to get information. And it turns out that we have a thing called uniform resource identifiers, which identify information resources, not even necessarily information resources, but they identify resources uniformly. And so in the HTTP scheme, or doesn't matter, but like, you know, HTTP, HTTPS, like the semantics, like what that means. Like if you've ever looked at HTTP range 14, which has its own Wikipedia page, that's how much of an issue it was. And I can't remember like how many years it, like I think it, I don't know, it was like a decade at least. Let's see. So first was 2002, so it was 11 years. That this was a live issue, and it's basically, what is the range of the GET function, was the question of HTTP range 14, and the answer is a document. And the document, though, is not a file. The document is just a message. So, like, what's actually producing the message? Now, Fielding had this idea where, yes, like you could have like the weather now versus the weather on this date. And the weather now could just be a pointer to the weather on the date that happens to be today. And like if you looked at it tomorrow, it would point to something else. And those would be two different resources, potentially. It could be model, I mean, yeah, you would model that as two different resources, and one resource is just a resource that points to the other resource. And that's it, that's all it is. But like, I would say that that an information, like a web resource where, you know, under the scheme HTTP or HTTPS, I would say that a resource, it has at least one URI and it responds to at least one request method, and it produces at least one representation, which could be the null representation. That's how I would characterize an information resource under that. Now, I came up with a taxonomy of resources where I would say that a resource could be service-like, and so that's like the most generic kind of resource because it just emits messages, like in response to requests, whatever the requests are, it'll just like emit a message based on the request. And that could be, imagine you just like hook up a PRNG to, you know, to it, and it just, you know, you every time you hit it, you get a new random number. That could be, you know, that could be the resource. That just could be, that's what it is. But I would say that you know, there's another kind of resource which is like, it is document-like, it is record-like it's data-like, to the extent that you can get it and you can potentially post to it, or you can, you know, put, delete, whatever. You can do certain document-y things with it. And those are like, yeah, those have this sort of expectation that like whatever you put there is going to still be there when you come back later. Like there's a sort of like notion of continuity. I mean, that is precisely what you know, that's like the notion of a file, right? The thing is web resources, even when you constrain that, they're not the same thing as files. They could incidentally be the same thing as files, but they are not necessarily even that. And they could be, because they could have, I count 4 dimensions just on the basic standard, no extensions, HTTP. I would say that the /weather/now is like, it could, depend, like the thing is like you get slippery like when, like in what you mean by document. Like, because like the problem is like is a document a sequence of bytes, like, because you could imagine, I have this document and it's in HTML, it's in Markdown, it's a PDF, it is a Word, it is ODS, it is, whatever, it is a bunch of different things, but it all says all the same stuff, right? There's no semantic difference between, this, that, or the other thing, like with the possibility of, loss, which is, potential. But then like some of that stuff could just be generated. Like, if you say you do pandoc and you take a Markdown and you turn it into LaTeX or something like that and you turn that into a PDF, it's like, is it, and then you turn it back into Markdown. It's like, did you lose information? Whereas if you like, got out InDesign or something like that and you typeset something and you made it actual something print and then you put that into a PDF, well, you try to turn that into Markdown, it's like, well, yes, you absolutely are losing information. So I just think that the definition of document has to be a lot more expansive. And in the case of the weather now, it could be like, because it's not, you could say, well, is the document the code that gets the sensor data out of the sensors and displays it? No. It's the code is sort of orthogonal to the document. It's the code generates or produces the document. I would characterize it as a service because now is always going to be different, and that's an architecture question where, like it's like it's a question of how you like you could. You could say, like, because I would call that the message, not a document. Like, you telling me the weather is, like, literally it is, what? "20 degrees, feels like 22, 20, what's 28, never mind. Yeah, the service. So it's like that's sort of what I mean. Because like the thing is what's confusing, I think, is the message goes over the wire. The message is HTML. You hit save on your side. Now it's a document. And like grammatically, syntactically, it's considered a document. So what we're getting is a sort of pun situation here, which is why so the difference is you can't like get /car, right? Like get/car does not get you a car. It gets you some documentary representation of a car. Get/me does not get me. It gets some HTML or some JSON or something like that. Like that's what HTTP range 14 means. And so like the point of it is like if you want to represent those things that are not, documents, qua, what they meant, then you use some other identifier, some other scheme, or you just use a hash. You use a fragment identifier, because then it's no longer their problem. So, you get /me empty hash. Oops, that's all of a sudden a fragment identifier, and it's no longer the business of the W3C tag anymore. Because then it's an HTML problem, and they don't care. At least that's how I interpret it. And so, yeah, I mean, this has been a thing. Like, I need to write this down. In fact, like, this is maybe one of those things that I'm going to do the semantic rest sort of lecture on. I can't remember which one. What did I even say that I was going to do? Where are you? What actually is REST anyway? So it was like the intro, information resource. This is the first one. I've already done this. Is that the one that I did it anyway? Anyway. Hypermedia constraint, data semantics, the missing links, pipes with types, cache rules, everything. I thought that was clever. And then the user resource. What did I say? That's a user resource interface. Oh, yeah. And then semantic rest on the front end was the last one. This is done, and I have to make that available, but I have to finish writing the order processing for that, which is going to be fun. But where am I at here? IO cosplay methods. I need to figure out what the hell I am doing with this next. I'm actually kind of surprised that there was more in here than I thought there was. Process model, IBIS. Yeah, so let's just actually look at this. Backlink paginations. This is the so addressable transforms are the path parameters that I have been using on all of my stuff for ages. I think this is, this one's like, yeah. So when I do that, like, that's fake, right? That's just a file. This like semicolon scale equals 1200 by 650. Like, that is fake right now. I have finally implemented the infrastructure for that, and I can't remember how much of it I've implemented or what just needs to be hooked up versus what actually needs to be written. But it's not a lot if it's anything. But that is going to afford. It's going to afford the image transforms actually working. That was like why I needed the caching, because these are expensive. And if I was going to just put this online without that, then like these would just shred any server that it would go on. And so this need to be this backlink pagination stuff. So this is the thing. Like if I go, let me just duplicate this. And I find myself. look at the source of this, and it's like, brah. Oh my God. Thousands. And they're all DC Creator. Unless they aren't, there's something else. And that is why. So this gets generated every freaking time. And that is why this thing has been chugging. It's actually not right. Because this takes freaking forever to generate. And so what I want to do is I want to paginate that. But like how to do that, like exactly like what the approach to do that has been sort of a bit of a question mark. Until fairly, I mean, it's always been contingent. So like what the idea was I would do the caching first, and then I would do the addressable transforms, and then I would make the backlink pagination a transform. Because it would just get handed in the thing, and then it would turn it into that. That's sort of the plan. So I would have to do this thing next. As you can see these. Oh yeah, the rest of the markup transforms. There's a bunch of markup transforms that are just no ops right now. The image transforms a lot of them are done, which is cool. But yeah, anyway, the backlink pagination is important because that puts all this other stuff, deals with all this other stuff online. One thing I'm really excited to be able to do though is like, I mean, you can even see in this like very superficial, dumb little thing, which is, I don't understand. Oh yeah, that's me. What's this? Yeah, that was the I said. This makes more sense as force directed. But the idea was, it's like, it doesn't stabilize either, so it'll like float off into nowhere. It's not my code. What was I going to say about that? What was I going to say about that? Oh, yeah, I mean, so the idea was just like I do sort of like corporate social network stuff, but like the other thing is like products. One class of product is like a publication, any kind of document. Like, so you can, I haven't decided how that's going to look yet. But, because this is empty. There's relationships on here, but like they're, I don't have all of the, the relationships of ontology, I just don't have them in there because a lot of them are a little weird. Like a lot of them, it's like it's not clear how, this has been an interesting collision of like data design. It's like, okay, like when I'm doing stuff like just even stuff like this, this context, predicate, I don't know, this dependency stuff that depends on and whatever, like that stuff is still ambiguous and it's still unclear, like as to whether or not it's any good and whether or not it belongs or whatever, or whether the semantics are distinct enough what they belong to, I would say is just sort of like, ambiguous. At this point, this is sort of like why I need to keep sort of using this more, because it's sort of like I don't know, like it's like I can say that the core IBIS stuff was figured out, decades ago. It was figured out in the 70s. So that is, issues, positions, arguments, and then then an issue and an argument, sort of a position responds to an argument, a position responds to an issue, an argument responds to a position, it either supports or opposes a position. Any of those objects can suggest another issue, an issue can question. All of those mechanics are all very, very stable. They've all been sort of figured out already. And then I went and I added on this sort of process modeling stuff. And so this is sort of like I'm getting ambiguities, first of all, I have three other entities in the process model. You can see this as a task, but I have goals and targets, and a goal is a binary, and a task, you can't, this is sort of like a goal is like you either satisfy the goal or you haven't. A task is like a specific thing that you're going to do has a specific method of how you're going to do it. And the reason for that, and the target is the thing that has the budget and the deadline attached to it, because you can't set a target until you know what you're going to do. And if you've got a target, the thing is you should be able to operate in both directions, right? Like it's like, fine, if your boss has given you a target and says this needs to be done by the end of the week or whatever, then that's going to very sharply constrain what you can do. And so it's basically just going to be okay, we're going to have to make these hard decisions about these concerns. And there's nope, we're not going to do it kind of a thing. We're going to have to leave this and leave that and leave this other concern and so on and so forth. But yeah, so I guess the thing is it's just sort of been, this is a very naive interface to the extent that, a goal is a subclass of an issue. And they both have a situation, or they both have a status of being satisfied or unsatisfied. I don't actually have that status on here, though, which I suppose I should. But then that's another question of do I make that a bit, or do I make that a timestamp? And if it's a timestamp, it's well, should it be an object? If it's an object, so that is it an event? So I record the event, and then it's okay, I'm not at the point yet. One thing that I think is would be cool from an application development perspective would be shackle rules, which are just arbitrary inference rules. So if you put down an assertion in the graph, then it'll generate some other triples. That does not exist, and that would have to be made. And I don't actually know what the basis for that is going to be quite yet. So that hasn't been figured out yet. I'm kind of getting a sense. I hate the term roadmap, because a roadmap implies places that you've been before. That's what a roadmap is. A roadmap maps roads, and roads are built to get places that already exist. So like I went and I looked, by the way, like at the history of like why is a roadmap called a roadmap. Apparently the answer is Motorola. But yeah, I've never loved the term roadmap for stuff like this. I like development plan, expansion plan. I like, yeah, roadmap is just a freaking, it's a thing that, roadmap tells you where to go, where people already are. It's not a place it's not a thing that you pull out to know where nobody has gone before. That is something else. What is that actually? Sort of orienteering, right? You've got your compass, you got your machete, your bushwhacking. Surveying would be it. There's an interesting book called Roads to Power by Jo Gildy. She's an interesting lady. She wrote, Roads to Power, which is about the infrastructure state. So it's like there's a remark in there where she's like, she says like prior to like the government taking over the creation of roads and like thus having authoritative centralized authority where the road maps came from. This was in Britain in the 1700s thing. So like going anywhere, options. Sorry, read about real options theory. Is that what like a thing, real options theory? So have you ever read, I can't usually rearrange the stops along the way to maximize that? No. I have not heard of that, but what I have heard of is the, so I did a thing, actually, I did a thing back in 2021. I did a timing test for a talk, which I really need to recut. But I did this talk, a methodology talk. Kent Beck, okay. Well, Kent Beck is not a dum-dum. Was it real options? Anyway, but I came up with, basically the argument goes, and I need to sort of firm this up. I've been calling this, I've been calling it Fermi scoping. And the basic, pay a little dynamic, yeah, for sure. I mean, in a way that's kind of like the term technical debt by his colleague Ward Cunningham. Well, first of all, I don't think he actually used the term technical debt. He called it the debt metaphor, and there's actually like a thing online. There is an actual thing from the 90s, I think, where he explains what he means by that. Maybe it's not the 90s, maybe it's later than that. Like, it's effectively like he's talking about the debt metaphor as a form of leverage and as a form of like capitalization. It's actually a lot more considered than what people typically call technical debt. Technical debt, what people typically call technical debt, is just entropy. But the idea of stuff like options and insurance, I mean, just options and insurance are like, I mean, they're both derivatives. There is a book called The Medium of Do not. Fuck you. Fucking unbelievable. They can't do this. They can't go a week without testing the fucking fire alarm. Yeah. Cooking bacon. Yeah, email me. It's still the same email, or just like hi@doriantaylor.com is the actual one that I will look at. I mean, I can still see the Gmail, but that one's gonna land in my face, whereas the other one does not. Yeah, I'm gonna actually get out of here before the fire alarm starts going again for real. I've actually been on here for almost 3 hours now, so I'm gonna peace out too. Yeah, it's good to connect with you again, Tom. I haven't heard from you in a while. So yeah, holler. Yeah, I'm gonna disconnect.